All right, a little bit of breaking news today as the Noles pick up a big-time commitment and a much-needed piece of depth to add to their safety room. Ashlynd Barker officially committed to the Florida State Seminoles, and he will help bolster a safety room that saw some attrition this offseason. But this commitment is probably a bigger deal than most FSU fans realize, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Barker is a 6'3", 200-pound safety. He's originally from Columbus, Georgia. He's got 4 years of eligibility left. He played last year at Iowa Western Community College. He actually redshirted there, and that's how he has all 4 years of eligibility left to play with the Seminoles. This is a big deal, and it's a big pickup for Mike Norvell, Adam Fuller, and of course Pat Surtain, and we're going to talk about why we let our Discord members know that this was going to be happening. So if you haven't joined that Discord, the link is there in the description. Free to join, absolutely doesn't cost you anything. Get in there with about 2,000 FSU fans that are talking about the Seminoles on a daily basis. Barker has excellent size, and he's the exact frame that FSU's coaching staff wants a safety to have. Ultimately, you can't teach size, and as good as Jamie Robinson was, he was always a little small. He was a little bit undersized, probably why he fell a little in the draft. Despite being an absolute dog and having a great college career, size is really important at that safety position, and Barker has that. 6'3", 200 pounds, as we mentioned, before he even steps on campus. You'd imagine him to maybe put on another 5-10 pounds of muscle when he gets under Coach Storms. But I really like what the Noles have gotten here in this prospect. Florida State offered early in May and immediately began working on and closing in on the talented safety prospect. Big shout out to Adam Fuller, who was instrumental here. Obviously, again, we mentioned Pat Surtain, Mike Norvell, the entire staff for getting this wrapped up and taken care of. Barker is extremely physical, as you can see from some of the highlights that we're showing from his high school tape. He is really, really long, as evidenced by his 6'3" frame. We've mentioned that a few times. He's quick. I think he closes very, very well. He moves well. Takes pretty good angles. I know Brendan Sonone of Noles 247 did kind of an in-depth on some of these plays that you're even watching right here that you guys should go check out. But Barker does a lot of things really, really well. I think he moves well, again, for his size. Seems to have a nose for the football, whether that's in the air, on the ground. Does a really good job of getting to the ball, no matter what that situation might be. I'll link his full highlights down in the description. We'll also show some more as the video plays. But FSU certainly got a really, really good athlete here in Ashlynd Barker. I want to talk about what FSU can expect from Barker. Just before we do that, I do want to give some love to our friends over at Garnet and Gold. If you are an FSU fan, you probably know about Garnet and Gold. If you don't, we'll tell you just a little bit about them. They are the last remaining family-owned and operated FSU retailer in Tallahassee. Make sure that you're shopping at Garnet and Gold. They've got great prices, better people, really, really quick shipping, and we will save you 15% off of your order if you use code NOSLAW. A lot of times, some of the other retailers put big, huge sales of 60 to 70% off, flashy on their website, and then that's on like 2 items or on like quadruple X items that nobody can even purchase. Not with Garnet and Gold. 15% off your entire order. NOSLAW, NOSLAW at checkout. Make sure that you're shopping with people who support our athletes and support Florida State University. Okay, so just before we get to what FSU can expect from Barker this year, I want to talk about a pretty good comparison for Barker, and it might not be what you're thinking. Usually when we do these comparisons, they're another safety or they're another player of a similar position. That's not what we're doing here. We're going a little bit off kilter, but I do think you guys will agree here. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments on this. But I was chatting with somewhat of an insider this week, somebody who's very well connected, pretty plugged in with what's going on with the program. And he was telling me something that I think is pretty true, makes a lot of sense. But this take of Barker reminds me a ton of FSU taking Kyle Morlock in the last transfer portal cycle. Morlock, obviously a really talented, big, physical tight end from a lower level, though I talked with the Morlocks, and Shorter University is the top of that level of college football, coming from a smaller level, a lower level, but has an extremely high ceiling. Kyle Morlock and Ashlynd Barker both could be, in a year or two, expected to do massive things for Florida State. Both of them really just having unlimited potential. Now, both guys will need to live up to that potential, and that'll be on FSU staff and those guys' work ethic to get there. But I think both guys have potential through the absolute roof. And I think that is why both of them were selected and were taken, again, from a lower level up to a Power 5 and top 10 program all time in Florida State. You can trust one thing with Florida State, and that is that this staff's scouting is going to be on par. And Mike Norvell and his staff have done a phenomenal job scouting. This isn't the first time they've done that. They were one of the first ones in on Jared Verse, and they've done a phenomenal job going and getting guys from lower levels and bringing them up because they can kind of find that diamond in the rough. They can kind of find that guy who may be slightly underrated but is going to pan out and pay huge dividends down the road. I expect that to be the case here with Barker. I expect it for Morlock without a doubt as well. And I think that was an interesting but really, really good comparison. The scouting that this staff does and has done is really second to none. You can go through the list on 247 of the guys that Florida State has offered and look at when Florida State offered them versus when maybe the two big in-state rivals offered them. Almost always it's Florida State offering first and Miami and Florida playing catch-up. I'm not joking here. Go to 247, do the research on your own, and see it for yourself. Now, what can I expect from Barker this year, this season? Well, I actually expect him to get in and actually see a good amount of action for the Seminoles. I like the things I'm hearing from Shaheem Brown, and I think Akeem Dent is going to be really good for the Noles this year. But outside of that, there's not a ton of depth available for the Noles. There's a couple of young guys that I know the staff absolutely loves, in Kenton Kirkland and Conrad Hussey once he gets on campus. And I know that both of them are going to do good things. They're both athletic freaks. But I think Barker might be just a little bit more college ready, having gone through a full season in college already, a redshirt season where he was able to put on a little bit of weight, able to do a little bit more training, and just be a little bit older, a year older, more mature as far as his body development and understanding college football than the true freshmen that are going to come in. Missing on Jalen Key, obviously nobody wants to talk about that. That's not a huge topic of warmth or anything that anybody wanted, but you got to face the reality. You missed out on a battle with Jalen Key, and you're going to need somebody to step in and come and do some things and give you some production this year at that safety position. And I think Barker can do that. His length, his quickness, his instincts make him an attractive piece for Norvell, Fuller, and Surtain. He will certainly get a lot of burn this season when you look at some of the opponents that Florida State plays. Now, I don't know how much he's going to get in and be able to make a massive difference in Game 1 against LSU, having missed the entire spring. We'll see how much of the summer he's here for and what that looks like. But he will get all of fall camp, and so we'll see kind of what that looks like. But I do think that you look at some of the other teams on Florida State's schedule, you obviously are going to be playing a road game at Boston College. You got Southern Miss, and I think you've got an October that's very manageable with teams like Duke, Syracuse, and Virginia Tech in there. That he might see a lot of action in some of those games. Schedule sets up really well where I think you'll see him get a decent amount of reps, and I think that will really help him for that stretch run down at the end of the year. In November, when the Noles are taking on both rivals in Florida and Miami, Pittsburgh, hopefully an ACC championship, and then bigger and greater games beyond that. I think him being able to play a lot early is going to help the Noles as the season goes on. That is probably going to be a room, the safety room, that no way around this. I probably have more concerns than any other room at Florida State right now, but I think that's a room that's probably going to show the most improvement from week 1 to week 12. I think that the talent back there in the safety room is off the charts. I think it's about Florida State developing it as the season goes and seeing how high it can truly get by the end of the year. He's also going to be a really good, really pivotal piece for the future if things continue to develop well for him. Again, 4 years of eligibility. He could play a lot of snaps in Garnet and Gold. You wouldn't, this is Dent's last year. We'll see what happens with others in that room, but he could put himself in position to have a really long, successful career in Tallahassee at Florida State. All in all, a great day for the Noles as they pick up a big commit, a huge depth piece, JUCO safety commit, Ashlynd Barker. Make sure that you're locked in with the channel and you don't miss our upcoming news and notes that we will be putting out. And again, Join that Discord so that you can chat with nearly 2,000 FSU fans daily on Florida State football nonstop. The link is in the description. It's free to join. Appreciate you guys for hanging out. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.